If you've played any amount of chess, you've definitely heard of the Nimzo-Indian defense. And for good reason. It's not just another opening, it's a whole philosophy. So today, we're going to break down why this legendary answer to White's first move, d4, is seen as one of the most powerful and strategically complex weapons in all of chess. Let's get right into it.
You know, it's not just me saying this. Ask any Grandmaster, any top player, and they'll tell you. The Nimzo-Indian is called the gold standard for a reason. It's solid, it's trustworthy, and right away, it puts your opponent on the spot with some really tough questions. This isn't about memorizing 100 lines of theory, it's about understanding one single brilliant idea.
So, what is that big secret? Well, what if I told you there's an opening that puts your opponent in a bind, where every choice they have comes with a major downside? That's the beautiful, and for them frustrating, dilemma that sits right at the very heart of the Nimzo-Indian.
Okay, so before we can really dig into the dilemma itself, we need to see how it even gets on the board. Let's just quickly walk through the moves that create this whole strategic battlefield.
So it starts off pretty standard. White plays d4, black brings their knight to f6, white plays c4, black plays e6. Pretty normal stuff. But now, after white develops their other knight to c3, here it is, the signature move, bishop to b4. That one move, that little pin on the knight, well, that's everything. It stops white from playing the move they really want to play, e4, and it kicks off the entire game's conflict right there.
And this is where the magic really begins. That one simple move, bishop to b4, on just move 3, immediately puts white at a huge strategic crossroads. What black has done here is create what is basically a win-win situation for themselves, right out of the gate.
So this is the dilemma. Here are white's choices. On the one hand, they can just let black capture that knight on c3. The upside? They get the bishop pair, which is a great long-term advantage. The downside? Their pawn structure is a wreck. It's permanently weakened. Okay, so what's the other option? Well, they can spend a move protecting that knight, but doing that costs precious time. It slows down their development. So what'll it be? A weak pawn structure or lost time? For black, either one of those is a strategic win.
So when you're faced with a tough choice like that, how do people usually respond as white? Well, their decision basically leads down 3 main paths, and each one creates a completely different kind of chess game, with its own feel and its own set of challenges.
First, you've got the Rubinstein. This is probably the most popular, most solid way to play. White basically just says, you know what, I'm not going to deal with that pin right now. I'm just going to play a normal developing move, e3, and get my other pieces into the game. It's a very practical choice, and it leads to a really complex strategic battle, where black is going to try to hit back in the center as fast as possible.
Then there's the classical variation. This is for the player who absolutely hates having a bad pawn structure. Here, white immediately moves their queen out to c2. The reason is super clear. If black takes the knight, the queen just takes back. No pawn damage. The trade-off, though? Well, the queen comes out a little early, and the whole development plan is just a tad slower. These games tend to become very, very technical.
And last, we have the most aggressive option, the Semish variation. With the move a3, white just confronts the bishop head-on and says, all right, make a decision, right now. White fully accepts that they're gonna get those doubled pawns. They don't care. In return, they get the bishop pair and a giant pawn center they can use to launch a huge attack. This is definitely the high-risk, high-reward way to play.
So we've seen how white can react. But what's the real idea for black here? What's the deep philosophy behind this opening? I mean, why is giving up a bishop for a knight so powerful? Well, it goes way deeper than just the first few moves.
And here it is. This is the key. The Nimzo-Indian is all about patience. You are trading your dark squared bishop, a really valuable piece, for a knight. Now, if you're a beginner, that might seem kind of weird, but what you're really doing is you're trading that piece for a permanent, long-term structural advantage. You're betting that way down the line, in the endgame, white's own weak pawns are going to be their downfall.
But hey, the Nimzo isn't just about slow, strategic maneuvering. It is absolutely full of tricky, tactical ideas. So let's look at a classic little cautionary tale for white, a trap that shows just how fast things can go wrong if you aren't paying close attention.
Okay, check out the snap trap. Let's say white pins black's knight with their bishop. Black immediately says, get out of there, and plays h6. White retreats the bishop, and black just keeps kicking it with g5. Now this looks like black is just chasing a piece around, right? But here comes the killer idea, knight to e4. All of a sudden, that knight is a monster, sitting right in the center, causing all sorts of problems.
So why does this work? Well, remember that knight back on c3?
the one that got pinned way back on move 3, it still can't move. It can't jump into the action to help defend the center. And because of that, white's entire position could just collapse with shocking speed, leaving their king completely exposed to an attack. It's just a perfect example of how every single piece in the Nimzo is connected.
So in the end, the Nimzo-Indian teaches us this really profound lesson. It's an opening that's built not on some flashy, quick attack, but on a really deep understanding of long-term weaknesses. And it forces us to ask a bigger question, one that goes way beyond the chessboard. When you're building a winning strategy is patience, that ability to trade a small gain now for a huge advantage later, the ultimate weapon.